Ladies and gentlemen, friends and fellow believers, today we are going to explore one of the most crucial topics for anyone seeking to fulfill their divine purpose, the tests of God. Every elevation in life, every new level of success, influence, or purpose is preceded by a test. You see, God doesn't just promote us based on potential, He promotes us based on our proven capacity to handle the next level. But how do you know when you've passed God's test? How can you be certain that you are ready for the new dimensions He has prepared for you? Today, I want to highlight 5 clear signs that you have passed the test and are prepared for the next season of your life. One of the first signs you've passed the test is clarity. You are no longer confused about your assignment or your direction. God has allowed you to go through situations that refined your vision and sharpened your focus. When you pass His test, you come out with a deeper understanding of why you were created. The fog of doubt is lifted and your purpose becomes your driving force. As Proverbs 19:21 says, many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. When you pass the test, you align with His purpose. Another clear sign is your growth in spiritual maturity. The same situations that once rattled you now serve as an opportunity for growth. You no longer react impulsively to trials, but instead you respond with wisdom, patience, and faith. You have learned to wait on God, to trust His timing, and to rely on His promises. James 1:4 tells us, let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. You are not moved by every storm, because you now understand that storms are simply a part of God's training process. You see, when God elevates you, He doesn't just bless you with more comfort, He gives you more responsibility. You will know you've passed the test when doors of influence begin to open for you, and with it come new assignments. It's not always glamorous, but it's always purposeful. God's promotion doesn't come without new levels of accountability. In Luke 12:48, we read, to whom much is given, much will be required. The new level is not about what you can receive, but what you are ready to give. A key sign that you've passed God's test is your endurance. You see, anyone can have faith when everything is going well, but true faith is tested in adversity. Passing God's test means you didn't give up when the journey became tough. You didn't compromise your values when faced with temptation, and you didn't walk away when it would have been easier to do so. Hebrews 12:1 tells us to run with perseverance the race marked out for us. You kept running. You kept believing. You passed because you endured. Finally, one of the clearest signs that you've passed the test is the peace of God that surpasses all understanding. Even in the midst of challenges, there is an inner calm and assurance that God is with you. Along with that peace comes divine favor. Doors open that you never expected. Opportunities arise that you never thought possible. And God's hand becomes evident in your life. Philippians 4:7 tells us about this peace, saying, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Before God elevates anyone, He first prepares them. This preparation process often takes place in the hidden places far from the spotlight. It may seem like a time of waiting or even frustration, but it is a necessary season. Just like a seed must be buried in the ground before it can sprout and bear fruit, God plants us in circumstances that seem challenging or obscure to develop what we will need for the next level. This preparation isn't random, it's intentional and purposeful. God orchestrates situations that will refine your character, test your faith, and stretch your patience. He brings people into your life who may challenge you, situations that may seem unfair, and moments where you feel forgotten or overlooked. But these are not setbacks, they are divine setups for your future. He is equipping you with the skills, resilience, and spiritual strength you will need to handle the weight of the responsibility and influence that comes with your next level. In these times of preparation, you may feel uncomfortable, but remember, discomfort is a sign that God is working. He's molding you, shaping you, pruning away the things that are not necessary for your next season. Just like a potter works the clay, pressing, molding, and reshaping it, God is doing the same with you. Preparation is not about perfection, it's about positioning. God is positioning you for the tasks and assignments that will demand a higher level of maturity, faith, and endurance. During this process, it's important to recognize that what feels like waiting is actually working in your favor. You're being prepared for a destiny that requires readiness, not just ambition. The tests you face now are not for punishment, but for progress. And the greater the assignment, the more intense the preparation. Don't despise this season, embrace it. Because the depth of your preparation determines the height of your promotion. When you pass God's test, one of the most profound transformations that takes place is the clarity of your purpose. Before the test, you might have had a general sense of direction, but things were still hazy. You may have been questioning, second-guessing, or even doubting the path you were on. But after enduring and passing through the refining process, your purpose becomes sharper, clearer, and more focused than ever before. You begin to understand not only what you are called to do, but why you are called to do it. Your vision becomes aligned with God's vision for your life, and you are no longer distracted by the noise or opinions of others. Passing the test brings you into a place where your priorities shift. You start to let go of pursuits that don't align with your divine assignment. The things that once held your attention, the trivial goals, the temporary distractions, no longer have a grip on you. You're now walking in a deeper awareness of what truly matters, what God has specifically designed you to accomplish. This clarity also brings a sense of urgency and focus. You stop wasting time on meaningless activities and start channeling your energy toward your calling. There's a renewed sense of passion because now you see the bigger picture. The fog has lifted and you can see the road ahead more clearly. You're not just existing, you're living with intentionality and purpose. Another aspect of this clarity is that you begin to recognize the unique gifts, talents, and resources God has placed in your hands. You see how everything you've gone through, every struggle, every lesson, every setback was part of God's plan to shape you for your assignment. You realize that nothing was wasted. The test was not only about endurance, but about preparation for the very thing you were created to do. Your past experiences, both good and bad, now make sense as they align with the future God has shown you. With clarity comes confidence. You are no longer intimidated by the challenges ahead because you know you've been prepared for them. You no longer doubt your ability because you understand that God is the one who has equipped you. You begin to walk with a sense of divine purpose that cannot be shaken by circumstances or opposition. In this stage, your decisions become more intentional and your direction becomes more definite. You are no longer wandering in the wilderness of indecision because you now see the path laid before you. This clarity of purpose becomes the compass that guides you into your next level. You realize that God's hand has been upon you all along, guiding, preparing, and now revealing the specific purpose for which He has tested and refined you. As you pass through God's tests, one of the most evident signs is the growth in your spiritual maturity. It's a shift in how you think, respond, and live. In the early stages of your walk, you may have been easily shaken by trials or distracted by temporary setbacks. But now, after enduring God's refining process, you handle life's challenges with a different perspective. Spiritual maturity means that you no longer react impulsively or emotionally when things don't go your way. Instead, you respond with faith, wisdom, and patience. This growth is often marked by your ability to trust God, even when you don't understand what He's doing. Before, you might have questioned His plan or tried to take control of situations out of fear or frustration. But now you have learned to wait on the Lord. You trust that His timing is perfect even when it seems delayed in your eyes. You've developed the patience to remain steadfast in the midst of uncertainty, knowing that God is always working, even behind the scenes. Spiritual maturity is also seen in how you handle people. You now operate with more grace and compassion toward others, especially in difficult relationships. The same situations that once triggered anger, bitterness, or impatience now serve as opportunities for you to show love and forgiveness. You begin to see people through God's eyes, understanding that their actions may be a reflection of their own struggles. This maturity allows you to remain calm and composed in situations where others might lose control. You've come to realize that the true test of your faith is not just in how you handle blessings, but how you handle adversity and difficult people. Another sign of spiritual maturity is that you are no longer moved by external circumstances. You've learned that real peace and joy are not found in material things or favorable conditions, but in your relationship with God. Whether you are in a season of abundance or lack, your attitude remains the same, grateful and trusting. The storms of life no longer have the power to destabilize you because you are anchored in your faith. You've reached a point where your emotions are not dependent on what's happening around you, but are rooted in God's promises. Mature faith also brings a deepened sense of humility. You recognize that your journey is not about your strength, intelligence, or abilities, but about God's grace. The trials you've endured have stripped away pride and self-reliance, teaching you to lean completely on Him. You are no longer striving for recognition or approval from others. Instead, you are content to serve quietly, knowing that your reward comes from God alone. Furthermore, spiritual maturity is seen in your endurance. You don't give up easily. Even when the road gets tough, you press on, trusting that God will complete the work He has started in you. You have learned to persevere, knowing that each test, no matter how difficult, is preparing you for something greater. You now understand that the trials weren't meant to break you, but to build you. Finally, spiritual maturity is reflected in your ability to discern God's voice. After walking through seasons of difficulty, you've become more sensitive to His leading. You no longer chase every opportunity that looks good on the surface because you've learned to distinguish between what is good and what is God's will for your life. Your spiritual senses have been sharpened, allowing you to navigate life with greater wisdom and clarity. When you pass God's test, one of the clearest signs is the increase in responsibility that comes your way. God never promotes you without purpose, and with every new level of blessing or influence comes a higher level of accountability. This is because God's elevation is not just for your benefit, but for the benefit of those around you. When He entrusts you with more, He expects you to steward it well, knowing that you now have a greater role to play in His kingdom. With increased responsibility, you begin to notice that the things God places in your hands, whether it's resources, people, or opportunities, carry a weight of divine significance. You're no longer just managing your life, you're managing a greater assignment. The stakes are higher because God has positioned you to have more influence, and with that comes the expectation that you will use your position to advance His purposes. You see, responsibility is not just about doing more, but about doing things with a deeper sense of purpose and intentionality. God trusts you with tasks that require wisdom, patience, and discernment. This means you must now approach decisions with greater care, understanding that your actions have a broader impact. Whether you're leading a team, managing a business, or even raising a family, your role now comes with an understanding that you are operating under divine authority. You're no longer just making decisions for yourself, you are making decisions that affect the lives and destinies of others. As your responsibility increases, so does your capacity for leadership. God begins to shape you into someone who others look to for guidance, wisdom, and support. This may be in your workplace, your community, or even within your family. People begin to rely on you more, and you find that God has given you the ability to handle these expectations with grace and strength. This isn't something that happens overnight, but it is a result of the testing process that has prepared you for this moment. With increased responsibility also comes a deeper level of sacrifice. You may have to give up certain comforts or personal desires in order to fulfill the new demands placed on you. You may have to dedicate more time to serving others, mentoring, or investing in things that don't immediately benefit you. This is part of God's design. He blesses you so that you can become a blessing. The higher the responsibility, the more you are called to pour out, knowing that it is through serving others that you fulfill your purpose. Moreover, this new level of responsibility often comes with new challenges. But these challenges are not to discourage you, rather they are there to further strengthen and refine you for even greater tasks ahead. You will face situations that test your wisdom, your patience, and your faith, but these tests are now on a different level because God has trusted you with more. He also expects you to rely on Him even more deeply. The challenges you face now are not meant to overwhelm you, but to draw you closer to Him as your source of strength. At this stage, it's important to understand that responsibility is not a burden, but a privilege. God could have chosen anyone, but He chose you to carry out a specific part of His plan. This is an honor, and it shows that he sees you as someone capable of handling more, someone who has proven faithful with the little and is now entrusted with much. This increase in responsibility is a clear indicator that God is preparing you for an even greater role in his kingdom work. Increased responsibility doesn't just affect your external roles, it also deepens your internal commitment. You start to carry a greater sense of accountability before God, knowing that every action, every word, and every decision matters. You understand that your leadership and influence are not just about achieving personal success, but about fulfilling God's higher purpose for your life and for those you serve. One of the most telling signs that you've passed God's test is the endurance you've shown through trials. Endurance is not about merely surviving difficult times. It's about maintaining your faith, integrity, and commitment to God despite the pressures that come your way. Trials are inevitable in the life of every believer, but the way you handle them reveals the depth of your faith and your readiness for the next level. Endurance is built when you go through hardships that test your resolve. It's in those moments of pain, disappointment, and uncertainty that your true character is revealed. When you pass God's test, you show that you haven't allowed those trials to break you. Instead, you've allowed them to build you up. You faced adversity, but rather than giving up or compromising, you've chosen to persevere, to trust God, even when it seemed like the situation wouldn't change. Enduring through trials means you have learned not to take the easy way out. There are times when giving up seems like the most convenient option, but endurance requires staying the course no matter how difficult the path becomes. You don't look for shortcuts because you understand that the process is just as important as the destination. The trials you endure serve a greater purpose. They strengthen your faith, deepen your reliance on God, and prepare you for the greater tasks that lie ahead. Endurance also refines your patience. Trials often take longer to resolve than we would like, and it's in this waiting period that many grow weary. But when you pass the test, it's because you have learned to wait on the Lord, trusting that his timing is perfect. You've stopped trying to rush the process or force solutions, and instead you've embraced the waiting season as a time for growth and preparation. This kind of patience is a mark of spiritual maturity and shows that you are not driven by circumstances, but by your trust in God's plan. Through endurance, you've also developed resilience. You've encountered setbacks, but instead of letting them defeat you, you've used them as opportunities to grow stronger. The trials you face may have knocked you down at times, but they didn't keep you there. Each challenge you endured taught you something valuable, and you emerged from each one with a greater understanding of God's faithfulness. You didn't allow the trials to shake your faith or diminish your hope. Instead, you stood firm, knowing that God would bring you through. Furthermore, enduring through trials strengthens your relationship with God. In the most difficult times, you've learned to press into him, to seek his presence more fervently, and to rely on his strength rather than your own. You've discovered that it's in the valleys, not just on the mountaintops, where you experience the deepest intimacy with God. Your trials have driven you to prayer, to worship, and to lean on his promises like never before. This deeper connection with God is a direct result of the endurance you've shown. Endurance doesn't mean that the trials become easier. It means that you've grown stronger. The difficulties may still come, but now you face them with a different mindset. You know that every test is temporary, but the lessons you learn and the faith you develop are eternal. You've stopped asking, why is this happening to me? And started asking, what is God teaching me through this? That shift in perspective shows that you've passed the test, because you now see trials as tools for growth rather than obstacles to be avoided. In the end, endurance through trials is proof that you've been refined by the process. It's the evidence that you didn't quit, that you held on to your faith, and that you are now stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the responsibilities that come with the next level. Trials are the fire that purifies and prepares you for greater things, and when you endure, you show that you are ready for what God has in store for you. One of the clearest signs that you've passed God's test and are ready for the next level is the manifestation of divine favor and open doors in your life. Favor is when God's hand moves in ways that no human effort could accomplish. It's his approval, his blessing, and his grace working on your behalf, opening opportunities and creating pathways that you could never achieve on your own. After enduring the trials and passing through the refining process, favor begins to flow, and you find yourself walking into places and situations where God's grace has already prepared the way. Divine favor is not something you can earn. It is a gift from God, given to those whose hearts are aligned with His will and who have been faithful through the testing seasons. When you pass God's test, He rewards you by opening doors that no man can shut. These open doors are opportunities that align perfectly with your purpose, doors that lead you into places of influence, abundance, and impact. It's not by coincidence or human connection that these opportunities come your way. It's by God's divine orchestration. You'll find that where there was once resistance or obstacles, now there is ease. Things that seemed out of reach suddenly become accessible because God's favor is upon you. This doesn't mean that there won't be challenges, but it does mean that God goes before you, making crooked paths straight and removing barriers that once stood in your way. People will begin to recognize something different about you, not because of anything you've done, but because they see the evidence of God's favor in your life. They will open doors for you, offer support, and give you access to opportunities because they are being moved by God's hand. These open doors often come in unexpected ways. You may find yourself stepping into a role or responsibility you never imagined, or receiving an opportunity that seems far beyond your qualifications. But that's how God's favor works. It's not based on your qualifications or achievements, but on His purpose for your life. When you pass His test, He knows you are ready to handle the new level of responsibility, and He grants you favor to step into that space with confidence. Divine favor also brings with it a level of supernatural provision. Resources that seem scarce suddenly become available, whether it's financial support, strategic partnerships, or even wisdom and insight. God begins to provide what is necessary to fulfill your purpose at this new level. You'll notice that things just seem to fall into place. Doors of provision open in ways that leave no doubt that God is behind it all. You may even find that people are drawn to help you, to support your vision, and to invest in what God is doing in your life because they see that God's favor is resting upon you. This favor is not only for your personal advancement, it's meant to bless others through you. When God opens doors, He does so not just for your benefit, but for the benefit of those He wants to reach through you. The favor you receive becomes a platform for greater service and impact. God trusts you to carry His favor with humility and to use it to lift others, to expand His kingdom, and to reflect His glory in everything you do. It's important to recognize that divine favor and open doors are not a result of your efforts alone. They come after you have proven faithful in the trials, after you have trusted God through the hard times, and after you have submitted to His process. It's the result of being tested, refined, and prepared for the next level. God's favor is His way of saying, you're ready. You've passed the test. Now walk through these doors and fulfill the purpose I've placed on your life. As you walk in this favor, remember that it is God's doing. Stay humble, stay faithful, and continue to rely on Him. The doors He opens for you are not for your glory, but for His. And as you continue to steward the favor and opportunities He brings, you'll find that His hand will remain upon you, guiding you from one level of greatness to the next. This is the power of divine favor and the blessing of open doors. You are not just being blessed for yourself, but to be a blessing in a greater capacity than ever before. One of the most profound signs that you've passed God's test and are prepared for the next level is the ability to experience peace in the midst of pressure. This peace is not the absence of challenges or stress, but a deep, abiding sense of calm and assurance that comes from knowing God is in control. It's a peace that transcends understanding, a supernatural calmness that guards your heart and mind, even when circumstances are chaotic. When you've been tested and refined, you no longer allow external situations to dictate your internal state. You've learned through experience that God is faithful, and this knowledge anchors you no matter what storms may come. Pressure, whether it comes from increased responsibility, expectations, or challenges, no longer overwhelms you. This peace is a result of trust that God has a plan, trust that He is working all things together for your good, and trust that He will carry you through every situation. You've reached a level of spiritual maturity where you no longer feel the need to control every detail or outcome. You've surrendered to God's sovereignty, knowing that He sees what you cannot see and is orchestrating things in your favor, even when it doesn't look like it. That's why in the face of pressure, you remain composed, focused, and unshaken. Another key aspect of this piece is that it allows you to make decisions with clarity, even under immense pressure. When you're at peace, you're not driven by panic or rushed into making choices out of fear. You can think clearly, hear God's voice more distinctly, and respond to situations with wisdom and discernment. This is critical as you step into higher levels of responsibility where the decisions you make have greater consequences and affect more people. The peace of God acts as a filter, preventing confusion and keeping you centered in His will, no matter how intense the situation around you may be. This peace also guards your emotional health. Pressure can easily lead to stress, anxiety, and burnout if you're relying on your own strength. But when you've passed the test and are operating in the peace of God, your spirit remains at rest. You don't carry the weight of the world on your shoulders because you've learned to cast your burdens on the Lord. You understand that the pressure to succeed or manage every situation isn't yours to bear alone. God's peace allows you to move forward with confidence, knowing that He will carry the heavy load. Moreover, peace in the midst of pressure is a powerful testimony to those around you. People will notice the difference in how you handle adversity. When others are panicking, stressed, or overwhelmed, your calm demeanor will stand out. This peace is not just for your benefit, it becomes a witness to God's presence in your life. Others will see that your strength comes from a source beyond yourself, and they will be drawn to the peace that only comes from knowing God. Increased pressure often accompanies promotion, and with it comes greater expectations and demands. But when you have passed God's test and are walking in His peace, the pressure no longer steals your joy or drains your energy. Instead, you operate from a place of rest, knowing that God has already gone before you. This doesn't mean the challenges disappear, but your perspective changes. You now view pressure as an opportunity to rely on God even more deeply, and you find strength in His peace that sustains you. Ultimately, this peace is the assurance that no matter what you face, God is with you. It is the quiet confidence that His presence surrounds you, His favor goes before you, and His strength upholds you. Even when the demands of life increase, even when the pressures mount, you carry a peace that cannot be shaken. This is the hallmark of someone who has passed through the trials, trusted God through the process, and emerged ready for the next level. One of the most unmistakable signs that you've passed God's test for the next level is the elevation of your character. Trials and tests are not just about endurance, they are about transformation. God is more interested in who you are becoming than in what you are doing. When you emerge from a season of testing, your character reflects a higher standard of integrity, humility, and godliness. The refining fire of trials burns away the impurities of pride, selfishness, and insecurity, leaving behind a character that is mature, stable, and rooted in Christ. This elevation of character means that you begin to operate from a place of greater responsibility and accountability, not just to others, but to God. You're no longer concerned with merely appearing righteous. Your heart genuinely desires to be righteous. There is an inward shift where doing what is right becomes more important than being recognized, praised, or accepted by others. You no longer seek validation from external sources because your confidence is grounded in who God says you are. As your character elevates, you also become more trustworthy in the eyes of God and others. People can rely on your word because you are consistent and dependable. You do what you say you will do, and you do it with excellence, not because you seek approval, but because you know that you are ultimately accountable to God. This kind of integrity cannot be developed in comfort. It is formed in the furnace of testing, where you learn to choose obedience over convenience, faithfulness over shortcuts, and truth over personal gain. Another sign of elevated character is the way you handle power and influence. When you pass God's test and He elevates you, there will be more opportunities for recognition and leadership. But instead of letting this newfound influence corrupt you, you remain grounded in humility. You understand that your position is not for your own advancement, but for the service of others. True elevation of character is marked by a servant's heart. You seek to lift others up rather than to elevate yourself. You understand that any power you have is given by God, and it is to be used for His glory, not for your own. This maturity in character also shows in how you respond to criticism and opposition. Instead of reacting defensively or with pride, you are able to remain calm and gracious under pressure. Elevated character allows you to handle both praise and criticism with balance. You are not puffed up by compliments nor crushed by negativity because your identity is secure in God. You've learned not to let external opinions shape your sense of worth or dictate your actions. This inner strength is a sign that your character has been elevated to a place where you can handle the responsibilities and challenges of the next level. Furthermore, an elevated character is marked by a deep sense of responsibility for how you influence others. You become more conscious of the example you set and the impact your actions have on those around you. There's an increased sensitivity to how your words and behavior reflect the character of Christ. You understand that God has placed you in a position of influence, and you take seriously the responsibility to live in a way that honors Him and encourages others to follow His example. With this elevation of character comes a greater capacity for grace. You find yourself more patient, more forgiving, and more compassionate toward others. You no longer hold grudges or allow bitterness to take root in your heart because you have learned the power of grace. You extend the same grace to others that God has extended to you, knowing that true strength lies in the ability to love, forgive, and serve even when it's difficult. This level of grace is a reflection of God's character being formed in you. Ultimately, the elevation of your character is the foundation for every other blessing and responsibility that comes with promotion. God does not elevate you in status without first elevating you in character, because He knows that your character will sustain you in places where talent, charisma, or ability alone cannot. Passing God's test is not just about moving to a higher position, it's about becoming the kind of person who can handle the weight of greater influence with humility, integrity, and grace. It's about being transformed from the inside out so that when God opens the door to the next level, you are ready to walk through it, not just in ability, but in character. A powerful sign that you have passed God's test for the next level is the deep sense of joy you experience in serving others. This joy is not tied to recognition or reward, but to the fulfillment that comes from aligning your heart with God's purpose. Service becomes more than just an obligation or a duty. It becomes a source of genuine delight because you understand that in serving others, you are serving God Himself. This joy arises from the realization that your work, no matter how big or small, has eternal significance. When you have been through God's testing, your perspective on service changes. You no longer serve out of a need for approval, validation, or even out of a sense of religious duty. Instead, you serve from a place of love, gratitude, and a deep awareness that every act of service is an opportunity to reflect the character of Christ. This joy in service flows from a heart that has been refined through trials, where self-interest has been replaced with selflessness. You begin to see the privilege in every opportunity to give, help, or support others, knowing that in doing so, you are advancing God's kingdom. This joy is not dependent on the task at hand or the conditions under which you serve. Whether you are leading a major project, offering a word of encouragement, or simply helping someone in need, there is a consistent sense of fulfillment that accompanies your actions. You find joy not in the outcome or the recognition, but in the very act of serving, because you know that your work is for the glory of God. This kind of joy is rooted in a deep understanding of purpose. It's the awareness that God has placed you exactly where you are to make an impact, and that your service is part of something far greater than yourself. Serving others with joy also demonstrates that your heart is aligned with the heart of God. Jesus Himself modeled this joy in service, even in the most challenging moments. He found fulfillment in doing the will of His Father, and He approached every act of service with a heart of love and compassion. When you pass God's test, you are transformed to serve in the same way, willingly, joyfully, and sacrificially. Your service is no longer motivated by what you can gain, but by what you can give, knowing that you are reflecting the love and nature of God to those around you. Moreover, joy in service is sustained through the power of the Holy Spirit. It's a supernatural joy that is not affected by external circumstances. Even when service is difficult, even when it requires sacrifice or goes unnoticed by others, you still find joy because your focus is not on the temporary but on the eternal. You know that your labor in the Lord is never in vain. This joy empowers you to serve with energy, passion, and persistence even in the face of challenges, because you understand that your service is an expression of worship to God. As you step into new levels of responsibility and influence, the joy of service also deepens your relationships with others. It creates a sense of community and connection as people are drawn to the love and sincerity with which you serve. Your joy becomes contagious, inspiring others to serve with the same heart and purpose. You begin to realize that your service is not just about the tasks you accomplish, but about the lives you touch and the hearts you encourage along the way. In conclusion, as we reflect on the 5 clear signs that indicate you have passed God's test for the next level divine preparation: clarity of purpose, spiritual maturity, endurance through trials, and peace amid pressure, we recognize that these elements are not merely markers of achievement, but transformations of character and spirit. Each sign illustrates a journey of growth, one that God orchestrates through trials and challenges, ultimately leading you to a deeper understanding of His will for your life. When you embrace divine favor and experience open doors, it is a testament to your readiness for greater responsibilities and opportunities. The elevation of character that accompanies this journey signifies that you are no longer driven by personal ambition, but by a profound desire to reflect God's glory in all you do. With this elevation comes the joy of service, a joy that flows from the knowledge that your life is making a meaningful impact in the lives of others. As you move forward, hold on to the peace that comes from knowing God is with you in every circumstance. Allow this peace to guide your decisions and interactions as you navigate the complexities of life and leadership. Remember that joy in service is the highest expression of your faith. It's the tangible evidence of God's love at work within you.